Hello and welcome to another video, and I thought it would be fun now that we're at the end of the 7th generation of consoles. The ship's pretty much sailed. We're kind of into next gen. I know there's still games coming out for PS4 and Xbox One, but they're playable on the new systems. And I thought right now it would be a fun time to sit down and discuss the top 10 worst games of the 7th generation of consoles. So just kind of a precursor before we dive into my picks for this video. Some of these are personal preference, some of these are general preference. So if you see a game on here, and I guarantee there's going to be one or two that are really going to be triggers for people, keep in mind, it's my opinion. With that being said, I also plan on doing a video of what I think are the top 10 best games of the 7th generation, and that'll be coming out shortly as well. But I thought it'd be fun to start with the worst, or what I feel are the worst. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll just dive right in and kick it off. Number 10 is gonna be the first one that's gonna have a lot of people upset, but I really kind of feel this way about this game, and that is The Last of Us Part 2. And I think the reason why is just like the story is such a massive letdown. Said this all along from when The Last of Us 2 was first announced was, yeah, I don't really think I need a sequel to that. And then they proved my sentiment there by making a game that it really honestly feels like the writer, Neil Druckmann, and the person, like, he was told by Sony, you need to make a sequel. I feel like he didn't want to do it, and so he spent the entire time deconstructing what that whole franchise could be, what that story was, by making like what I feel is a piss poor story. I mean, again, full spoilers. The game's been out for almost a year, so I feel like I can talk about it. Playing I'd say 70% of the game as a completely different character, only to try and humanize that character and their actions, just for them, a good chunk of their character to be, like, their friends and stuff to be killed. It just didn't make any sense. It didn't do anything. Like, when those moments happened in that game, they fell flat for me. Like, I didn't feel anything. When you take back over as Ellie and then you kill Abby's friends, I just didn't feel it. I didn't care, because I did not care about those characters. That's not where I wanted to see the story go. I didn't really want to see the story go anywhere. So, that being said, The Last of Us Part 2, well, I think it's one of the worst games in terms of just disappointment. It's not a game that I would put on this list because of gameplay. I think the gameplay was actually really, really great. But that part of it, and just the overall, like, it came out in 2020. 2020 was already a really shitty year for many, many people. And I feel like every aspect of it was just such an even bigger downer than the first game. And I think that piled on with the story just isn't good. It's one of the most disappointing games of the generation. I think it's one of the worst, unfortunately. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, no, like, what are you talking about? AAA Sony. But for me, that's number 10. And that's why it's lower on the list for me than some of these other ones. So, but for me, it's number 10 on my list. Number 9 is a game that I actually have talked about on the channel a lot, and it's Gears 5. So Gears 5, I think, is the worst in the franchise. I think that the Coalition did a really good job with Gears 4. They kind of made what I would refer to as the Force Awakens with Gears 4. And I was even more excited when Gears 5 came out for where the story was going to go. Shifting the protagonist to Kat, I thought was a really good idea. Unfortunately, now that I actually finally went back with a buddy this past January, when I was recovering from my hernia surgery, to play this game's story and just see. And, like, even now, almost, it's what, a year and a half since that game came out, it's still broken. It still has server issues. It still has just broken pieces that the Coalition have never fixed, and I don't think they ever will. We came up to one mission specifically where the mission objective could not be completed, and that was just like, what is happening? This game's been out a year and a half. So that aspect of it is bad. I think all of the predatory issues surrounding the microtransactions and the multiplayer were bad at launch. Now, the Coalition, I will go on record and say the Coalition has done a lot of things to fix the Horde mode, and that's the one redeeming quality of this game, and I still do play Horde mode from time to time in Gears 5. I think it's the best Horde mode of any. of the Gears games. But that one mode, I don't think can save an overall really shitty game, unfortunately. Gears 5, number 9 on my list. Number 8 on my list, also a high-profile release from 2020, and that is the Avengers game. So I wasn't going to play the Avengers, and then some buddies wanted to play it, and so I ended up getting it for PS4. I've played it twice, and I'm waiting for the PS5 version because I just want to see if it's any better. What is there to say about this game? It is broken as shit, and it is shocking how badly broken this game is, because there's so much around it. There are so many studios that worked on this game. There was so much money thrown at this game. It is like an Anthem level abomination, only with a major movie license, and with the Avengers. And I mean, you just start from the beginning. Like, the Avengers themselves look like caricatures of the movie counterparts. The little bit I did play of the story campaign is actually really promising, and I want to go back and finish that story campaign, but I'm waiting for the PS5 upgrade, which is like a week from now at the time of this recording. But the multiplayer, and that was the main reason I picked it up, was I had a couple buddies that wanted to play it. And the first time I sat down to play this game, we sat in the party, I get a black screen and it just doesn't load. And I had to ask him, like, did the game freeze? And my one friend, who's played more of this game than he should have, literally said, yeah, that can happen sometimes. The solution is just close the game and reload it. We had to do this 3 times in this one session just to get this multiplayer level to load so we can play together. This is a big, huge AAA release from a humongous studio with more money thrown at it than a lot of games get. How is that possible that it's that broken? And it's just, they keep breaking it. You know, they're doing some changes for the next gen releases with how you gain experience that seem even worse. And it's just, overall, it's a really disappointing game. And I think you had an opportunity to make like a Marvel Ultimate Alliance type game. And instead they decided to shoot for the stars with a games as a service game, and it fell so flat. It's number 8 on my list, is Avengers. Number 7 on my list is everyone's favorite Kickstarter game to hate, and that is Mighty Number 9. Mighty Number 9 is a travesty. I bought it years later digitally on the PSN for like $5, just as a morbid curiosity to see how bad it is, and it's unplayable. Like, especially if you compare it to Mega Man 11, which came out not long after. I want to say like 2 or 3 years, maybe even shorter than that. It's a travesty. I don't know what Infune was thinking. The Kickstarter, obviously, I'm not going to go into everything that happened there, but it's very well documented how shitty that Kickstarter was and how poorly it was handled. And it's just a bad game. It's really disappointing. I love Mega Man, and it's really bad. So I don't think I need to say more. Number 6 on my list. Oh boy. So I would call myself a mild fighting game fan, but there were a lot of great fighters in the 7th generation of consoles. You know, I looked at things like Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11. I look at Injustice. I look at what they were doing there. To a lesser extent, you know, some of those Blaze Blue games and stuff. I was a big fan of Dead or Alive 5. I played countless hours with a friend who's really, really obsessed with Dead or Alive 5. We played a lot on the PS3, and then when that last round version came out on the PS4, we played countless hours there. You could actually transfer all your stuff to that version. So I was excited about DOA 6. I actually bought it on launch day. I bought it with the TV right behind me. I didn't even realize it was coming out, and it was kind of like I was at Best Buy buying. I was like, oh, I'll buy, you know, DOA 6 isn't going to be bad, right? I can't imagine a worse fighting game. And like, it's like they took this game and just copy and pasted DOA 5. Like, the graphics don't look any better between 5 and 6. They added, at the time of launch, 1 new character, and then they added some other new characters since, but it's a travesty. It doesn't play as good. The quote-unquote story mode is a joke. And the biggest offender is it doesn't have a tag team mode, which is the mode that I played in Dead or Alive 5. It's the biggest mode, you know, and it's just, it's a massive bummer. It's one of the most disappointing games of the generation, and one game I look at and go, man, I paid $60 for that. And it just sits on my shelf. It sucks. DOA 6, it's number 6 on my list. follow that up, and you can probably kind of see the poster behind my TV only because I can't get back there and pull it down, but in a couple of weeks it's coming down finally. It's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5. I love Birdman, as you guys know on the channel. Huge fan of Tony Hawk. And this story actually has a happy ending because the brokenness and bastardization of the Tony Hawk franchise here in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 is what led to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, the remake that came out last year, to critical and commercial success. One of the best games of 2020. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5 is terrible, and it was made by Robomoto, or the people who made the board games, and they also made the some people hate it, some people are okay with it, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD remaster, which was back in 2012, I want to say. And so people thought, well, they probably do okay with this job. No, at one point they went underground after people questioned the visuals of the game, and then they came back and the visuals of the game were cel shaded. They decided to do something really, really stupid with this game and add a grind slam move. So every time you press triangle if you're playing on a PlayStation controller, or Y if you're on an Xbox controller, to grind a rail, you will like slam down onto it. And it's a travesty. It's broken. It forced you into an online lobby every time you wanted to play, which is just an abomination. It's a terrible, terrible game. I had it reserved up until the day before it came out, and then I was like, I'm gonna go get it from Redbox, back when you could. Can you still rent games at Redbox? I don't know. But I went and rented it, and then learned, like, no, this game sucks. And I did not pick it up. So I actually don't own a copy of Tony Hawk 5. I should, because I love Tony Hawk, and I feel like I should own them all, but what a terrible game. That's number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list, I think a lot of people would expect me to put higher on this list, but as I talked about in Game of the Year stuff, it's a game that for me personally, it was fine. I played through it. I enjoyed my time with it, but I understand why a lot of people didn't have a good time with it. It's more on this list because of all the shit that happened around it, with like blatant lies, there's lawsuits, all that stuff, and it's more or less the company that was this beloved company that made 3 really great games, but one that was, universally beloved, and then spent 7 years making this game, and it came out a dumpster fire for a lot of people, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. Like I said, for Cyberpunk, I had a good time with it. I played it on the Series X, so I didn't see as many glitches or problems as a lot of people did, but a lot of people did. If you were trying to play the game on a base Xbox One or a base PS4 console, you probably couldn't play the game. That's terrible. And this is after this company lied months prior and said, oh, hey, this version of the game looks great. And it was terrible. I'm not going to get into all the other lawsuit stuff. The only other thing I'll mention here is this game is the first major release I can remember where it was pulled off a major digital distribution service, and as of this recording is still not on there to purchase, by that being the PlayStation store, so the PSN. You cannot buy this game on the digital PlayStation store still, because of how broken it is. Like, it's insane that happened, and with this big of a game. So Cyberpunk 2077, there are many videos out there about the odyssey of that game. I recommend you do a deep dive if you want to hear more about it, because it is a fascinating dumpster fire. But that's number 4 on my list. Number 3 on my list is another game that continued the downfall of a once beloved company in the 7th generation of consoles. And it started with one game, and then it really imploded with the second game. This game that we're talking about is, of course, Anthem. Now, Anthem, I don't have any footage of because I didn't personally play Anthem, but I watched kind of from afar. It was a dumpster fire, and most recently, after touting for the last year, oh, hey, we're working on Anthem next. We're going to do all this cool shit, and we're going to fix the game. We're going to bring everybody back. It's going to be great. All for EA to look at and go, it's dead, and that's over. And I think that perfectly sums up Anthem. Anthem was built as a games as a service game that just didn't take off. People weren't interested. And I think BioWare really learned here that their core focus should always be on single-player, story-driven experiences instead of a games as a service game. And I think one of the reasons why Mass Effect Andromeda suffered so much is that the core A team who would have made that game was working on a games as a service game, something they had never done before, and if I'm being honest, will probably never do again. And their B team worked on Andromeda, which is why Andromeda suffered so much. So obviously BioWare, they're trying to turn things around right now. They're working on Dragon Age 4, which I think will probably be out next year. And they're working on the next Mass Effect, which, you know, by all intents and purposes, probably will be a sequel to Mass Effect 3. Seems like it, because the trailer they put out had Liara in it, so maybe there's a happy ending to that story too, but Anthem, it's a dumpster fire. It really is. That's number 3 on my list. Number 2 on my list, oh boy, it really hurts. It really hurts to put this one on the list, but unfortunately, it almost was number 1. But there's one other game that I think is so bad it deserves the spot. Number 2 on my list is Halo 5. I'm not even going to repeat around the bush. I'm massive Halo fan, as you guys know on the channel. I love Halo to death. I was so excited for Halo 5. We started to see some questionable things in the marketing when they started shifting focus away from Master Chief to a different character. But then they put out some really interesting trailers that made it seem like the story was going to go in an interesting way, and I was on board with it until the game came out. I was on board with the idea of Master Chief going rogue and somebody else hunting him down, and I thought, here's the opportunity to tell a really good story. They dropped I can't think of a game that dropped the ball more than Halo 5. Its story is so terrible. You spend 80 to 90% of that game playing as a character that is uninteresting, and then the levels you do actually play as Master Chief are not really that great as well. They took Cortana, they made her a bad guy, which really doesn't make sense considering her AI basically died in the last game, but now she's back and she's the main, you know, antagonist, and which raises huge questions about what Halo Infinite story is going to be. I have no idea what that story is going to be, and where they go from there. I mean, obviously, I think the things they're showing about Halo Infinite now, I think Halo Infinite, in terms of the footage they put out last year that everybody kind of shook their heads at because, hey, you know, the graphics weren't quite up to par. I think story-wise, it looked really good. I'm really interested to see where that story goes, and I think they have the right focus there. Now that they've started to put out some screenshots and stuff of the visual upgrade for the game, it's looking a lot better, but they really wrote themselves in such a bad spot for Halo. And this is coming off of Halo 4, which I thought was an excellent game. I loved the story of Halo 4. I liked where it was going. They had nowhere to go but up with Halo, and instead they just, you know, hit the floor with that story. And it's a shame. And on the flip side of that, I think the multiplayer was decent, but then they ruined Big Team Battle. Big Team Battle, which my favorite mode in Halo multiplayer, was destroyed in that game. And then they also had Warzone, which did also have microtransactions, but that didn't really take off. I didn't hate Warzone. I thought it was okay, but again, at the end of the day, I just didn't want to play a lot of Halo 5 after I played that terrible story. And I don't think I've had the game installed on my Xbox for years. So there's a reason why they don't add that game to the Master Chief collection, because it's not a good Halo game. There's also a reason why that game isn't on PC. It's not a good Halo game. So Halo Infinite, balls in your court. I really hope 343 can pull it through for that game, because I really think if Halo Infinite comes out and it is bad or worse than Halo 5, Halo might be a dead franchise. And I hate to say that because I love Halo. You know, look, Chief, you know, he's hanging out here. He wants to have a good time again. That's number 2 on my list. Number 1 on my list is actually a really bad game. I played a little bit of it on a stream about a year ago, right when this pandemic was starting. Just as a fun thing to do, because I wanted to see how bad the game was. I did actually purchase this game with my own money. I own a physical copy of this game. It is what I can only describe it is a spin-off of the Front Mission series. It is just a horrible video game. It is Left Alive. Left Alive should have a lot of cool things going for it. It's so broken. You'll see in the footage here. When you play now on a PS5, which is where I captured the footage for this video, you have 2 options. You know, you have either a resolution or a performance mode. I can't tell the difference between both modes. It's literally like they don't do anything. It has some of the worst motion blur I've seen in a game. It's a travesty. It's terrible. It's broken. The stealth is some of the worst I've ever seen in a video game. It's a terrible game. Do not play it. And I think easily I can sit here and say that is the worst game of the 7th generation of consoles. Nobody should play it. So there's my list. That's my top 10 worst games that came out in the 7th generation of consoles. In fact, you might even say they're the most disappointing. Some of these you may not say are that bad. I know a lot of people are going to look at this video and go, man, you picked Last of Us 2 on this list. What are you doing? But you know what? It's my list. I really didn't like that game. I think it's one of the worst. And I was excited. You know, I didn't think they needed to make a Last of Us Part 2, but as we got closer, I thought, man, this game may actually pull it off. It didn't. So let me know in the comments below what you think are the worst games of the 7th generation of console. Stay tuned, because the next video I have on this channel will be the 10 best games, which I'm still working on right now because I'm having a hard time narrowing it down to 10, because there were actually a lot of good games that came out in the 7th generation of consoles. As always, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And until next time.